I'm going to tell you a story of a helpless girl. She told me that my name is Ava Reynolds and I am 32 years old. 2 weeks ago, my mother Catherine Reynolds showed up at my door for the first time in 9 years. She stood there in a beige coat holding a small suitcase and a folded paper. It wasn't an apology. It was a list. Every line had a dollar sign. Total, $925,000. She didn't ask about my kids, she didn't say she missed me, she said, we need to talk about family responsibilities. But what she didn't know was, I had my own list. 9 years long, every ignored call, every returned birthday card, every message they never answered. I kept everything organized, dated, filed, not for revenge, but for truth. Let me take you back. I grew up in a small town called Brookfield, Ohio. Population barely 3,000.1 church, 1 diner. One way of thinking. My father Robert worked the same job for 30 years. My mother Catherine controlled everything, from the house to the church events. My younger sister Madison was their pride. She was loud, confident, perfect. I was the quiet one, the responsible one. But in our house, love wasn't equal. It was given based on approval. When I was 18, I got a full scholarship to Ohio State University. I was the first in my family to leave. That should have made them proud. But it didn't change anything. I met Daniel Brooks during my 3rd year. He was calm, focused, respectful, the kind of man who listens more than he speaks. We built something real over 3 years. No drama, no games, just understanding. When he proposed, I said yes without fear. But the fear came from my family. The moment I told them, the silence said everything. My mother didn't congratulate me, she warned me. My father said nothing. My sister told me quietly, they will never accept this. I didn't believe her. I wanted to believe love would be enough. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. If you marry him, do not come back. That was the line, and I crossed it. We got married in a small courthouse ceremony. No family from my side attended. Just a few close friends and Daniel's mother Eleanor Brooks. She held my hands and said, "You are family now." And in that moment, I realized something powerful. Family is not always blood. It is who shows up. 1 week later, I sent my parents a wedding photo. It came back, returned to sender. That was the beginning of my list. Year 1, I called 4 times. No answer. I sent birthday cards, all returned. My father sent one message, "Your mother needs time." That time lasted 9 years. When my twins Ethan and Olivia were born, I sent photos, returned again. My children never knew their grandparents on my side, but they were never unloved, because Eleanor showed up, she visited, she cared, she stayed. Years passed. Daniel and I built a small business together from nothing. Late nights, early mornings, struggles. We never showed anyone. We didn't chase revenge. We focused on growth. Slowly, the business grew, until one day, everything changed. But before I tell you what happened next, think about this. If someone only remembers you when your value changes, what does that say about their intentions? And if you were in my place, would you open the door again? Sometimes people walk away not because you are wrong, but because you no longer fit their expectations. Real character is shown in how someone treats you when you have nothing to offer, not when you have everything. True relationships are built on respect, patience, and consistency, not control. 9 years is a long time to be forgotten until suddenly, you are not. 2 years after we started our company, it was still small, unstable, and honestly frightening. Some months we barely covered expenses. Daniel worked 16 hours a day. I worked 2 jobs, one to survive, one to build our future. We didn't have investors. We didn't have support, but we had discipline. We had patience, and slowly, the numbers started changing. Our software began solving real problems. Small businesses started trusting us. Then medium ones, then investors noticed us. By year 5, we had 25 employees. By year 7, we crossed 8 figures in valuation, and by year 9, everything exploded. Our company went public in New York. I still remember standing there watching the numbers rise on the screen. It didn't feel real. Our net worth crossed $40 million in a single day. But the strangest thing wasn't the money. It was what came after. Suddenly, people remembered me. Old classmates started messaging, "So proud of you." Relatives I hadn't heard from in years liked every post, but one message stood out. My sister Madison texted me after 9 years, "Hey, how are the kids?" 6 words. 9 years, that was it. No apology. No explanation, just a door slightly opened. I didn't reply, not immediately. I wanted to see if she would try again. She did. A week later she said she was visiting Portland and wanted to meet. We met in a public cafe, she hugged me like nothing had happened, she smiled like we were still close. But her questions told the truth. She didn't ask how I survived, she asked how big the company was, how much we earned, how many employees we had, how much the house cost that I counted. She asked 27 questions, not one of them was, "I'm sorry." That's when I understood something clearly: some people don't come back for you, they come back for what you've built. That same week, I received something unexpected: screenshots from an old friend back in Brookfield that my family had been talking about me, not with love, with calculation. That my sister had written, "We need a plan. That she's a numbers person." My mother replied, "Start with what we need, make it reasonable." They listed expenses: mortgage, medical bills, retirement, monthly support. That it wasn't a conversation, that it was a strategy, and that's when everything became clear. 9 years of silence wasn't distance. That it was a decision, and now, this visit wasn't reconciliation. That it was timing. That I didn't react emotionally. That I didn't call them. That I didn't argue. That I did what I had always done. I prepared. That I organized my records again, every returned card, every ignored message, every proof of silence. That I didn't need to prove anything to the world. That I just needed to be clear with myself. And then, 2 weeks after our IPO, my father called. His voice was older, softer. That he said, "I'm proud of you." Those words should have meant everything, but timing changes meaning. Pride after success feels different than support during struggle. That I listened quietly. Then he said, "Your mother wants to talk." Not, "We want to fix things." Not, "We were wrong." Just, "She wants to talk." 2 days later, my mother texted me. The message was long, carefully written. She talked about family, she talked about the future, she talked about responsibilities, but she never said the one word that mattered: she never said sorry. I read it twice, then I closed my phone. Some people think forgiveness is immediate, but real healing requires truth, and truth cannot exist without accountability. That I didn't reply, and then, the silence broke again, this time, not from my side. That my friend called me. "Your mom is coming to Portland." I already knew. She had gathered information, she had asked questions, she had prepared her list, and now, she was coming to collect. But what she didn't know was, I wasn't the same girl she left 9 years ago. I wasn't waiting for acceptance anymore. That I had already built a life without it, and this time, when she knocked on my door, I wouldn't be the one asking to be let in. That I would be the one deciding who stays out and who comes in. The day she arrived, I was already waiting, not by the door, but in my mind, because some moments don't surprise you, they confirm what you already know. That it was 10:12 in the morning when the doorbell rang. That I looked through the window and saw her standing there, Ava Reynolds, my mother. After 9 years, she looked older, slightly smaller, holding a carry-on suitcase and that same folded paper in her hand. For a second, I didn't move, not because I was afraid, because I was calm, the kind of calm you only get when you've already accepted the truth. That I opened the door. That we stood there facing each other. No warmth, just distance built over years. She spoke first, "Ava." Her voice softened, like nothing had ever happened, but words lose weight when actions don't match them. That I stepped aside. "Come in." Not as a daughter welcoming her mother, as a person allowing a guest. She walked in slowly, looking around the house, not emotionally, carefully, the way someone studies value. She noticed the furniture, the space, the details, and I noticed her noticing. That told me everything. That I led her to the kitchen. That we sat across from each other. No coffee. No small talk. She placed the folded paper on the table and opened it neatly. "We need to talk about family responsibilities," she said, just like before. Then she began reading: retirement support, $500,000. College fund for Madison's son, $200,000. Medical expenses, $45,000. Mortgage payoff, $180,000. Monthly support, $3,000. She read each number clearly, like it was normal, like 9 years hadn't passed, like she hadn't returned every piece of my life unopened. When she finished, she looked at me calmly. "This is what families do." For a moment, I didn't respond. That I just looked at the paper, then I stood up quietly and walked to my office. She didn't stop me. She thought I was going to think about it, but I wasn't thinking. I was finishing something I started 9 years ago. That I opened the bottom drawer and took out the navy blue binder, heavy, full, complete. That I walked back and placed it on the table right next to her list. She looked confused. "What is that?" I sat down slowly. You brought a list, I said. So did I. I opened the binder, tab 1. Year 1. I took out the first envelope, returned to sender. I placed it on the table, birthday card, year 1. Then another, wedding photo, returned. Then another, Christmas card, returned. One by one. I didn't rush. I didn't explain. I didn't raise my voice. I just showed her, evidence of silence, evidence of choice, evidence of 9 years where I existed, but not for her. She started shaking slightly. Ava, this is not necessary. I didn't stop. I moved to the next section, voicemails I left, call logs, messages never answered, then screenshots, posts where I was erased. Texts where my children were dismissed. They don't have real grandparents. I read that line out loud. She flinched. I kept going. Then I opened the last section, the group chat, the plan, her words, she has money, she can help. I closed the binder slowly, the sound of the rings clicking echoed in the quiet kitchen. Then I looked at her, not as a daughter looking for love, but as someone who finally understood everything. You didn't come here for me, I said quietly, you came for numbers. Her eyes filled with tears, but I had learned something important. Tears don't always mean truth, sometimes they mean pressure. She tried to speak. I was hurt. You left us. I shook my head calmly. No, you told me not to come back. Silence. She had no answer for that. So she tried something else. After everything we did for you. I stopped her gently. Raising a child is not a favor. It's a responsibility. That was the moment everything changed, not outside, but inside her. She realized control wasn't working anymore, guilt wasn't working anymore, the version of me she remembered was gone. I pushed her list slightly back toward her. I'm not giving you money. Her face hardened instantly. You can afford it. Yes, I said calmly, but that's not the point. I leaned forward slightly. If I give you this, you will believe you were right, you will believe 9 years of silence was acceptable, you will turn this into a story where everything was just a misunderstanding. I paused, then said quietly, it wasn't. The room went completely still. I continued, if you want to know my children, if you want any place in this life, that doesn't start with money. It starts with truth, with accountability. With a real apology. She looked at me for a long moment, searching for the daughter she used to control, but she couldn't find her, because she didn't exist anymore. She picked up her paper slowly, folded it, picked up her suitcase, walked toward the door. She stopped for a second like she wanted to say something, but some words become too heavy when they come too late. Then she left. The door closed softly, not slammed, not dramatic, just final. I stood there for a few seconds, then sat down again, not crying. Not angry, just clear, because closure doesn't always come with emotion, sometimes it comes with understanding. That day, I didn't lose my family. I understood them, and that made all the difference. 2 weeks later, my father called. He apologized, not perfectly, not completely, but honestly, and that was the first real step forward. Not money, not pressure, just truth, and sometimes, that's where healing actually begins. Respect cannot be demanded when it was never given. True relationships require sincerity, not timing. People who return only when it benefits them reveal their intentions clearly. Speech balloon advice. Forgive if you want peace, but don't ignore the past. Take your time before trusting again. Set boundaries with wisdom. Some doors should not be reopened without change. Questions. If someone ignores you for years and returns when you succeed, is it love or need? Would you choose forgiveness, or distance? And what matters more, family by blood or family by actions?